You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Becca's there on the backhand, scoring the save, rebound in the crease, they score!
Hosted by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
And episode number 12 of season 2 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Amherst and in downtown Springfield, by our friends at Brewcade in Agawam, right there on Walnut Street, and even in the winter, by our friends at Landscaping That Fits, 413-847-0338. Got a nice Christmas card from the folks at Landscaping That Fits, so thank you for that, Rob. Alongside Matt Baker, I am your host, Steve Forney. What's up, Matt?
Not much, Steve. How are we? How are we doing? We getting through this week of school? How's it going?
We are two teachers just waiting for the school day to end on Friday. My goodness, golly, these kids.
I'm hoping nobody can see the bags under my eyes right now. It's legit.
And the funny thing is, you teach elementary school, I teach high school. It's the same.
Yeah,
it's the same this week. My kids act like they're 7. Your kids are 7. It's all the same. Holy smokes. So we have a lot to get to today. We're obviously going to break down the games in Charlotte, the game in Wilkes-Barre as well. And I don't know, despite the loss, I feel like we kind of have good vibes coming out of those. But we do want to send it to our neighbors up north, because we are very happy to have, again, after these 2 games in Charlotte, the team hopped on a plane, flew to Toronto, and talked to Ryan Smith, the voice of your Springfield Thunderbirds. So here's our interview with Ryan Smith. And as you can imagine, 2 teachers at this time of the year, the Thursday before a break, are the most tired people on the planet until except the one guy who's more tired than us. But a pleasure to have him on. Ryan Smith, the voice of your Springfield Thunderbirds. Ryan, thank you so much for taking, I think this is the first time we've gone international. Ryan's in Toronto. So thanks so much for taking the time, bud.
Yeah. I mean, if international counts, being still being in continental North America, but hey, we'll go with it.
The big step for Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast here. Ryan, Thanks for joining us. How's the roadie so far? 3 games down, 2 to go. In another country, travel going okay? Any fun stories you'd like to share?
I don't know if there's necessarily any fun stories. I think it was in my now 8 years doing this, whatever the total is now. I think it was the first time we ever actually had any kind of lengthy delay on any part of our travel, which it was lucky we made it this long without it, to be honest. And if the worst delay we get is hour and a half, 2 hours later than we originally were going to be, we can live with that, because we were supposed to leave at 10:15 on Monday. It ended up being more like 12:30, but really didn't really amount to a whole heck of a lot of difference. The practice time in Charlotte when we arrived was just a little bit shorter than it would have been otherwise. I'm not quite sure if the players minded that, quite frankly. So, other than that, nothing in the way of crazy stories. But we did have a nice little temperature hello for us today after leaving Charlotte, where it was 68 degrees yesterday, and arriving in Toronto, where it was unseasonably warm at 29 Fahrenheit when we got here today. So a bit of a change, but the Charlotte airport's undergoing a lot of construction, and as a result, it was an absolute sauna in there. I feel like I sweated through my shirt, my jacket, and my pea coat. So I'm happy to be cleaned up and feeling more like a human again. But other than that, not a whole lot in the way of crazy stories. But in terms of the road trip itself, I mean, you talk about a roller coaster ride of emotions in all 3 games in different ways, so to speak. It's funny how you can come away from one game it's funny how you can come away from 2 games, have the same net result in your standings, and feel so differently about the 2 games. And I think that was what we felt like from Wilkes-Barre to night 1 in Charlotte. In Wilkes-Barre, going into the 3rd period down 4-1, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, this might not be our night. It might not be it might not be all coming together for the guys, and the point streak might be in some jeopardy here. And then, lo and behold, Matthew Pekka scores in the first minute of the third, and there's a little bit of life. Scott Harrington scores 3 or 4 minutes later. There's a little more life. And then a late power play. And even though the power play it's been long going through struggles this season, but they came up with a huge goal at a big time from Alec Koskamaki. And to steal a point out of Wilkes-Barre was a great way to start the trip, considering how it looked like things were going to be after 40 minutes in Pennsylvania. And I don't think anybody felt great about the way the first 40 minutes of that game played out, but it's a kudos to the group and a kudos to the guys for not mailing it in and getting ready to hop on the plane to Charlotte, but to actually do something about it. And the reality is, in overtime, it's just a bad break. You have a red-hot goal scorer in Emil Bemstrom, who frankly, with all Pittsburgh struggles, I'm amazed he hasn't gotten a look in the NHL for any length of time at this point. The guy's been a NHL player in Columbus for multiple seasons, and I'm kind of confused why. Well, a lot about the Pittsburgh situation confuses me right now.
Yeah.
I think that can be said. That can be said for folks in Pittsburgh too, I'm sure. But it's just a bad break running into a hot goal scorer there. But you still get a point out of that game. And let's not snooze on the fact that Vadim Zherenko made some big saves in the third period of that game just to allow us to get to the overtime session itself. So you come out of that game feeling pretty good about yourselves. Night one in Charlotte was just, well, both days in Charlotte, it was just a lesson in allergies to leads. Both teams, both days. It felt like no lead lasted more than, I don't think a lead lasted more than 4 minutes on Tuesday. And lead lasted a little longer on Wednesday, but not considerably longer. And unfortunately for the T-Birds, it was a 2-goal lead that didn't stand up that time around. But I think you come out of those games with kind of a mindset of you were in all 3 of these games to start the trip. And Wilkes-Barre and Charlotte sure look like they're going to be in the top half of this division for much of the season. So I think it was a good litmus test for this group. And for as much of a learning curve as Steve Konowalchuk has said that this young group will have over the course of the season, this is another step in that learning curve, having your first lengthy road trip. The team has been so home heavy to start the season, and it sounds so rudimentary to say that you're playing on the same 200 by 85 surface, but the reality is it's a different game when you're playing on the road. And I think they've kind of learned that in some ways the hard way over the last couple of days, but I have no doubt that they're going to be a stronger team for it when they come out of this thing. And you still got 2 games over the weekend north of the border, and you can still come out of this trip with as many as 6 points. And I think if you went into the trip saying if you could come away with 6 out of 10, it would be phenomenal. 5 out of 10 wouldn't be bad either. So both those are still plenty attainable.
Yeah, Ryan, I feel like if any team really goes into play 3 games and comes out, quote unquote 0-3, right, with 3 losses, you're like, super bummed. What's the problem here? But this team, I feel like, has it's grit and balls. I mean, as Kevin Garnett used to say, it just feels so. This team's just so gritty and ballsy, and they just refuse to go down. And I have to imagine the vibes are relatively positive. Even the way that the second Charlotte game ended, which was not ideal, and obviously, and I bet Corey Schooneman doesn't feel good about the way that ended. But like you said, to have that comeback in Wilkes-Barre, to do what they were able to do to get to the shootout in night one, it feels like the vibes must. I mean, I'm not down on it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Matt and I are sitting here going, "Oh, this team can't win on the road," right? Like, I just feel like the vibes must still be relatively upbeat.
Yeah, I think if you blindfolded yourself and were around the guys today and just heard the way they were just kind of behaving and yakking it up with each other today during the travel day, I don't think you would necessarily know that they hadn't won a game yet on the trip. And it's amazing what the loser point can do to the standings. You can also, in a sick, twisted way, pretend that you're 1-2-0 instead of 0-1-1-1. So it's weird how the mind can play tricks on you like that. But I think, like you said, it's still relatively good vibes. And the reality is, last night was the first time they did not pick up a point in a game in the last 7, and they were 54 seconds away from getting a point out of that game, and possibly 2. So again, you got to take these things. Sure, there was frustration, no doubt about it, in the half hour to 60 minutes that followed the game, but you give yourself that half hour to 60 minutes to think about what went wrong, how you can get better from it, let your frustrations out, and then you turn the page, because in a 72-game season, you were going to have one of those games. At some point along the way, every team goes through a game where it felt like you had it and it slipped through your fingertips. Every team experiences it. Even the Hershey Bears experience it. So it's nothing to go scorched earth about and get into full panic mode. And especially, we're not even at the Christmas holiday yet, and not even close to the midpoint of the season either. So, and as you guys know, there's so many different dominoes that can topple. And we saw another example of a domino that could topple in the last 24 hours with P.O. Joseph getting traded and Tyler Tucker getting sent up. Tux is now playing as we speak in his third game in 3 nights. But when the third game is an NHL leg, there's a little bit more juice in the tank to get up for that third game.
Yeah. Ryan, quick question for you. It's a two-parter here. Was the crowd as quiet or empty in Charlotte as AHL TV made it look? How was the crowd? I know Tuesday and Wednesday night games are probably tough. Was
Tuesday
it quiet
it was.
in there? Yeah.
Tuesday it was for sure. Tuesday's a tough night, and I think anybody in the league can imagine it's a hard draw. Week before the holidays, people are already starting to get into travel mode. Tuesdays, it's a tough sell, and no doubt about it. And it was distinctly quieter on Tuesday. Last night, much different story. It was distinctly more crowded, distinctly louder. Maybe dollar beers had something to do with that. I don't know, but I'm just speculating there that might have something to do with it. And the fact that the home team rallied in the third period, it's obviously going to get loud in that stage as well. So Charlotte does a phenomenal job ordinarily under some very adverse situations, because their travel schedule is a complete anomaly to the rest of the Eastern Conference, maybe other than Cleveland. It is just not a friendly footprint for getting practice time and getting a rhythm as a group. So their homestands tend to be long consecutive homestands, which anyone who has worked in sports business in any amount of time knows it's really tough to sell 5 events in the span of 2-3 weeks time. And they do a terrific job given the circumstances. And I've never gone into a game in Charlotte feeling like it's a dead atmosphere. There are other teams, I won't name them, and you guys can put 2 and 2 together on which ones those are, where you do have a little more trouble getting up for the game. And I don't think that's the case in Charlotte. And even though it might not have been the standard that we're used to when we go into Charlotte for Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, still pretty easy to get up for games there.
I think it's Greasy Keys.
So
I like that guy.
He's
Greasy
phenomenal.
Keys.
Yeah,
he's cool. We need our own Greasy Keys.
Yeah. Let me go get a beverage.
Well, the reason I was asking,
pick his brain.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. The reason I was asking, we've been talking about this a lot on the show, where, it is a young team and they're learning to win and learning different aspects of the game. And I think given the last 3 games, right, the Penguins, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, they almost kind of got blitzed like right away. Like, was that first goal was like almost within 2 minutes of the game. So, they weren't really up to speed. Teddy bear toss for them. There's a little added juice there in Wilkes-Barre's legs. And then it seemed like in Charlotte almost too, the first periods were a little bit slow to get into. And I was just wondering if you think this is the next aspect of this team, young guys learning how to get up and be ready on the road in maybe not the same. They always talk about the energy in the Thunderdome, kind of getting them going in pregame. If that's not there, could that be something? We've seen quick turnaround. Steve and I, we point out, this team needs to learn this. This is what they're, and then in a game or two, kind of Walchuk's got them rolling in it. Could that just be the next aspect of this still young team get ready to go on the road in the first period?
Yeah, I think these things have cycles to them. And when you think about it, this team at one point during the point streak, or maybe just before the point streak, had scored first in, I think it was 7 consecutive games. Now all of a sudden they've given up the first one in 4 straight. So it's kind of weird how that streakiness has happened. The Wilkes-Barre situation, I hate to say I wasn't surprised by it, but I wasn't surprised by it because I was there the night before watching Wilkes' prior game against Charlotte on Friday night, and Wilkes got their doors blown off on Friday. They looked flat the entire 60 minutes. There wasn't much energy from the team or the building. And going into their teddy bear toss night, it was one of those recipes where you look at it and you see what happened the night before and you go, this might be a little might be a little tough out of the gate, and that's a veteran proud team in Wilkes-Barre. And sure enough, they were ready from the word go. And the T-Birds, I think, learned a lesson in not assuming that when things are going really, really well, that they're automatically going to keep going well. Again, they had that wonderful resilience in game, but you'd love to see them be in a position where they're asserting more first things first. And to your point, Matt, the energy in the Thunderdome is something that I think you take for granted how easy it is to get up and be firing away in the first 5-10 minutes of the contest. And certainly these 3 starts on the road to start this trip have been far from ideal in all 3 circumstances. But again, I think these things are all kind of cyclical in nature. And I would imagine that it's, if we're talking next Monday, Tuesday about a team that gave up the first goal or 2 on Saturday and Sunday up here north of the border, then you might get into the territory of, okay, this might be a lingering issue. But I think for the time being, it's nothing to go overly overreactive to.
We're talking with Ryan Smith, the voice of your Springfield Thunderbirds. And when we look at one of the things that I guess kind of fascinates me is the 11 forwards, 7D, and you know, I look at it just based on the roster. All the injuries are at forward, and all the guys that are coming up and down and being sent down are defensemen. It's like, what are you going to do? And we've seen here in Springfield, we've seen Matt Mangine do both. We've seen Joey Duzak slide into the forward spot pretty seamlessly. What I thought Hunter Skinner was kind of an odd choice there. I feel like he's the kind of guy who, like, if you're like, hey guys, who wants to play forward? He's like, me. And then you put him out there. What did you kind of see, and maybe what are, if you know, like some sort of the team strategies as looking at your roster? And you know, I don't know if Reese Newkirk got banged up, but what goes into that thought process, and what do you think of how that's all shaken out?
Well, the interesting thing with Skinner is, if you think back to his days when he was with Hartford as a Ranger draft pick, he actually played forward for a considerable amount of time with the Wolfpack. So it's something that he actually had in his back pocket. And for what it's worth, I actually really liked what I saw from him when he was playing up front. He brought kind of that same kind of grittiness that Dylan Peterson brings on the other side of the ice. And Hunter, not to take anything away from Dylan, he's a great skater for his size, but I would say Hunter Skinner is bordering on exceptional skater for his size. And I thought he brought a little bit of extra muscle to that forward group. And in the times that he was playing up front, he kind of bounced back and forth between the blue line and up front on Wednesday. In terms of the strategy of it all, I think it honestly just kind of comes down to it's the way the health is shaken out. The T-Bird injuries, all 5 T-Birds who are out with injury, they're all forwards. And 4 of them, arguably, are top 6 guys. Simon Robertson, maybe you slide him into the top 9 discussion, but when you're talking Zach Dean, Nikita Alexandrov, Mackenzie McEachern, these aren't just the odd guys that you're throwing in there. And not to take anything away from Taryn Pfizer, who was really, really good in his first couple of weeks playing in a bottom 6 role. It's tough to keep the fresh legs when you only have 12 healthy forwards. Simon Robertson's on this trip with us, but I don't know if he's going to go before the end of the weekend. It's just a matter of you have 12 healthy forwards. And I think with the abundance of defensemen available, even with Tyler Tucker going up today, there's still 7 healthy bodies back there on the blue line. Scott Harrington never got in Charlotte in 2 games because of the overabundance of guys that were there. And I think after the way the last 2 games played out in Charlotte, especially, and with what Harrington's game is, very simple, reliable in your own third of the ice, I would be shocked if Scott Harrington is not in there on Saturday in Belleville. And I would be shocked if we don't go 11-7 again. I don't know if it's a matter of if it's a decision with Newkirk, if it's a decision with LaFerriere. If it's injury oriented, it doesn't look like it. I'll put it that way. Reese Newkirk and Matthias LaFerriere, and LaFerriere, by the way, I don't know why I even threw him in that sense. He's not coming out. The way he played in Charlotte, best 2 games of the year by far, and really found a home for himself on that line with Drew Callen, it looks like, in the meantime. So I can't see him being the one coming out of the lineup, but these are all tough decisions that Steve Konowalchuk and, by extension, Doug Armstrong and Kevin Maxwell will have to collaborate on and make as a unit. When I mentioned I was walking with Kano through the airport the other day, and I said to him, "Man, you've got yourself quite the loaded blue line here." And first words out of his mouth were, "Yeah, these are tough decisions to make." But I retorted right back and I said, "Good problem to have, though, isn't it?" He's like, "Yeah." So
yeah, I mean that
hopefully-
it feels like part of it is like it's like how do you if you're that and with all due respect to Reese Newkirk, when you look at the quality of players, it's like how can you look at some of these guys on the back end and be like, well, I can't healthy scratch that guy. You know what I mean? Like you get like there's so much talent on there in the back end. So
yeah, it's tough, and I think the way that these 3 games have played out, especially T-Birds all of a sudden have allowed 4 more in 3 straight games. So again, I would be very, very surprised not to see Scott Harrington in there unless there is something lingering with him that I'm not aware of. But it sure didn't seem like there was. So we'll see what practice looks like tomorrow in Belleville, and we'll go from there. But I have to imagine that there will be some more tinkering in that way. And hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully Simon Robertson could be ready to go before the end of this weekend.
Cool. That's awesome. We're talking with Ryan Smith,
any other
Springfield Thunderbirds. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Sorry. Any other injury updates, or are guys just still progressing as they have been throughout the season?
Yeah, I don't really have anything further on any of the guys that we already knew about previously. Like I said, Simon Robertson's on this trip. He was skating in a regular jersey last I saw. So I don't know if it's a matter of just trying to get reps in practice and seeing how the lower body ailment kind of recuperates. I was with Taryn Pfizer at a community event earlier in the month, and I think he said his goal was early to mid-January. Mackenzie McEachran has been back on the ice a couple times a week in Springfield, which is a positive sign for him. As for the others, no real set timetable on Dean, who, as we know from kind of some of the reports from St. Louis, it's pretty serious lower body injury. Doesn't sound like a season ender, but still going to be some time for him. And Nikita Alexandrov, I think the timetable on him still kind of up in the air, anywhere from a month to 6 weeks. Who knows? But again, as we know, those timetables can change in a positive or negative direction. Just ask St. Louis, where Philip Broberg and Robert Thomas were supposed to be 4 to 6 weeks. Both of them were back a day shy of 4 weeks. And Nick Leddy was day to day, hasn't played in 2.5 months. So you can take those timetables and throw them out the window, because the body reacts differently at different ages and different stages, I guess.
Yeah, we're talking with Ryan Smith, the voice of your Thunderbirds. Last question for me, Ryan. I appreciate you coming on, man. I know you're flying around, but literally, what are some of the things that you're looking for on the ice in the next 2, and not just, results on the score sheet, but what are some of the things? I mean, I thought they did really well against the Charlotte power play, for instance, considering how potent that thing was, despite the way that it ended. But are there certain things that you're looking for on the ice that you want to see from this group in the next 2 games?
I think for the power play, I think we've kind of more or less resigned ourselves to the fact that it's going to be a work in progress. And it's not the first time a team will undergo this sort of thing. It won't be the last. For a power play like this, you're sometimes going to have your stretches where you're only 10% in a 10-game segment or whatever the case may be. I just want to see this power play generate a little more momentum for themselves in the offensive zone, whether they're scoring or not. You look, and just entering the offensive zone on a breakout on the man advantage has just been, I don't even know a way to sugarcoat it. It's been kind of disastrous at times. It's fortunate they haven't given up a short end.
Can I interrupt real quick, Ryan? Sorry. I've hated since the minute I've seen it, this I think it's called the slingshot entry. We've talked about this. And I talked with guys like Anthony Greco. I can't stand it. And I don't know. I don't like it. I don't see the point in it. Just wasting power play time. I don't know.
I think with this group, especially with kind of the rugged bodies that you have up front, I think it is better served to be a flip in and go retrieve it, outnumber in the corners. And Steve has proven that they can win plenty of board battles 5-on-5 and play an aggressive game 5-on-5. Forecheck is the hallmark of their game, and even strength, and it has shown that it can get results. I think they can lean upon that a little bit more. Obviously, you can't be entirely one-dimensional in how you enter and in how you get your power play set up in the O-zone, but there's a number of different ways you can go about it, and I think it's going to be just a matter of getting more and more reps in, and hopefully with players getting healthier, there will be a little bit more stability in the units, and a little bit more consistency and a little more predictability for the guys on the ice as a collective unit. I think that's a key step for it in stages moving forward. And then on the other side of things, you got to find a way to stay out of the box. And we saw this be a problem for them early in the season. It was a big part of the reason why the year did not begin so glowingly in the first month. And you'll notice that when things turned around and started to get better, you were only seeing the team shorthanded 3, sometimes 4 times a night at the most. And needless to say, that has not happened so far on this trip. And I think it's just a matter of not wanting to take away all the aggression. Not taking away all the aggression from your group, but at the same time, kind of picking and choosing your moments of aggression.
Ryan, again, we appreciate your time. One quick last question for me. Is there, and this is something that came in our fan rant question we posted on social media, any update on Dalibor Dvorsky, if he's going to play in juniors or anything like that?
I am not positive on it, and I don't want to declare yes or no. I tend to think it's possible, but with all of these nations, they're all sort of undergoing the same wait and see because guys are playing juniors, guys are playing pro. You never know what injury could crop up or what other circumstance could crop up, and they can wait really up until about Christmas to make their roster decisions. But I have to believe that Dalibor Dvorsky wants to go. It's his last chance to represent his country. He most likely would be a leader wearing a C or an A for that Slovakia World Juniors team. I would be shocked if he wasn't wearing the C, quite frankly, if he is on the team. And I think it's just such a unique chance at age 19 to go represent your country again. And look at all the first round picks that nation has churned out the last couple of years. It's all of a sudden a country that's not an afterthought in this tournament. Again, not positive if he's going. It would be awfully easy for him to get there after we're done in Laval on Sunday because the tournament, I believe, is over in Ottawa, so it wouldn't be a far hike for him. But it's just going to kind of be a wait and see before Team Slovakia makes their decision. Doug Armstrong alluded to Dalibor going in an interview in St. Louis earlier in the month. So if we take that as being gospel, then it sounds like Devo will represent Slovakia, and if he does, he'd be the first active member of the T-Birds to do so. So it'd be a pretty cool honor for him in that way. I know a lot of fans are kind of crossing their fingers that don't let us lose him, but reality is that tournament goes December 26th until gold medal game is January 5th. So you're looking at a maximum, if he goes, of missing 3, maybe 4 games. So nothing to kind of panic about. And it's a unique opportunity, and it's the last chance to do so. So if Doug Armstrong is comfortable with him going and the T-Birds are comfortable with him going, all the power to them and great opportunity for him.
That's awesome. Ryan Smith, we really appreciate you coming on. Again, it's crazy to think it's 9 years, 8 seasons, basically. We've been buddies for almost a decade now, so I really appreciate it. And I got to be honest. I got to be honest. Like you know me, I'm a nerd for this stuff, dude. You do such a nice job, dude. When I'm listening, you are exactly the type of broadcaster that I appreciate and I like. And I think that you just are so good at what you do. So keep it up. If you think that nobody's listening, we are. We're very much listening, and you're phenomenal. And again, I only get to listen to the away games, but dude, you're crushing it. So just keep it up. And it's great listening to you. It's great. We appreciate everything you've done for the podcast, and it's been nice being your buddy for the last almost decade.
Likewise, always appreciate it. I'm always just trying to kind of keep the audience in the back of my mind because ultimately the broadcast is for them. It's not for me. It's not a self-serving thing. And hopefully everyone gets as much energy and enjoyment from it as I do. That's really what it comes down to.
No, we can tell. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Go get a sleep or a meal or whatever, a shower, whatever it is you need.
Well, once I remember what time it is, we'll be golden.
Seriously. Thanks, bud. Take it easy.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, there goes the voice of your Springfield Thunderbirds, Ryan Smith. Just an absolute pleasure to have him on, and we do want to talk about that as well, but we do want to remind you that the SRG podcast is brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Amherst and North Pleasant Street. At 1500 Main Street is the place to park for these Springfield Thunderbirds games. Just go right past all of that MGM Springfield traffic to that parking garage. Just keep going, And it's the same distance. It's just the other side of the Mass Mutual Center. They'll validate your parking for you, so you still don't pay a dime. And while you're there, check out some of their food. It's absolutely outstanding. It's some of the best chicken fingers. Again, I eat like an 8-year-old. The chicken tendies,
It's good
are
stuff.
so
Yeah.
good. So definitely go check them out. By our friends at Brewcade on Walnut Street in Agawam. It's exactly what it sounds like. Beer, games, fun, pool, darts. They got dart leagues. They got all kinds of stuff going on. So follow them on social media and swing in there. It's right over the bridge from West Springfield, from where the Big E is. So definitely check them out as well. And by our friends at Landscaping That Fits, 413-847-0338. We are approaching 2025 like it's literally right around the corner. Think about March, think about April, think about May, think about all the lawn care things that you need to take care of. Call Rob now. His phone is on. Get on his list, see what he can do for you for this coming spring. Landscaping That Fits, 847-0338. A lot of good nuggets in there from Ryan. It was just awesome talking to that guy.
Yeah. And sorry for any technical difficulties on my end. Hopefully we have them resolved and the rest of the show nice and clean. But yeah, just great insight. And you know, I threw in some of those fan rant questions to him because you and we'd just be speculating or getting the information from Ryan. So why not ask him, you know, as face-to-face as this is, you know, hear it from him. But great to talk to him as often as we can and great insight on the team.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, we talk about these guys like we know him, and yet he's walking through the airport with them.
Yes.
Stuff, you know,
So
it's like
I'm
that guy,
walking near
that
the
dude
airport.
knows.
I'm talking to Kano, and
that guy knows. Yeah, that guy
Yes.
knows what's going on. So, I thought that was great. I that's what it is. It's like I have these feelings. Like when he was talking about Hunter Skinner as the 7th defenseman, I'm sitting there going, and I put in my notes on my phone. I'm like, why Skinner? Like, first of all, I think that he's one of their better defensive defensemen.
Right.
Like I'd want him on the back end.
Yep.
Second of all, he's not, he scores, but it's usually shots from the point, and
Correct.
he makes really nifty moves at the blue line, but I don't expect him to go in. In fact, he had a chance, I think the second Charlotte game, where he was in front of the net kind of all alone.
That breakaway.
He kind of fumbled, you know what I mean? And I'm like, where's Corey Schooneman? Where's,
Buchinger.
Bushinger.
That was,
yeah.
I mean, that was great insight from him. I never realized that Skinner played forward for the Wolfpack after being drafted by the Rangers. So that's great little nugget there. But I had the same thought watching, just from my fan's eye, right? My perspective, guys like Schooneman, Buchinger, a little bit more offensive minded defensemen, they seem to thrive in sort of bringing the puck up, leading the rush to an extent. I would have thought maybe their game translates a little bit seamlessly or less seamless. I don't know the right English there, but you know what I mean, right?
Our brains are scrambled, Matt. It's okay. We're gonna roll with this.
I think that made sense, right?
Yeah,
like those two in my head, I thought, oh, maybe Booch or Schooneman would be your guy to kind of fill that floating forward spot. There it is, Hunter Skinner. And so it's. I think, look, anytime you have, and he made a good point too, like, playing opposite Peterson there. I think when you have a Hunter Skinner on, yes, he has been playing great defense for us. But don't underestimate his ability to play physical, to play big, to intimidate might be the wrong word to use, but hold his own. I mean, he's going to do that. So, and our friend Joey Duzak last year just said, look, we're all hockey players. We know how to play every position.
Right.
We're just better at some than others, but we know how to play everywhere on the ice. And so,
well, I mean, to tie those two things together, because I asked him about the power play, like,
right.
Like, I'd be, if you're going to use him as strictly a forward, put him out there in the power play and play dump and chase. Like, again, because I hate this slingshot thing, but dump it in the corner and let Hunter Skinner go get it. Let Dylan Peterson go get it. Let these guys go get it, because again, Duzak was a little undersized. Matt Mangine back in the day, a little on the smaller side, but played a physical game. Those are the kind of guys that you would, if you're going to use them at forward, then like use them at forward, right? Yeah. I do think that one thing with Bushinger and Loof in particular, and I'm not sure maybe on Johannesson, I think that's a tough sell to St. Louis.
Yeah.
When you're saying, wait, you're taking our best defensive prospect in Michael Bushinger and using him as a forward. Like, what are you
Right.
doing down there? Right. You're taking
Fair.
Leo Luke playing a forward. What are you doing? Right.
Yeah.
So maybe there was a little bit of that. I think that's why I leaned more Schooneman, just because he's been around and he's not a top prospect or anything like that. But either way, interesting insight from Ryan, and gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
let's get into it, right? We had it. Look, this was we're in the midst of a 5-game road trip. Ryan alluded to this, first lengthy road trip for this team, who has had a lot of home cooking so far in this early part of the season. To go back to things that we've been talking about, this is a young team and they need to learn the ins and outs, the ebbs and flows of an AHL season. This is one of those ebbs, right? It didn't start off. Look, in Scranton Wilkes-Barre, I said right off. I remember watching the game on the couch with the boys within the first minute, saying, "Oof, we are behind." They were just faster, and it was their teddy bear toss night. So you can tell they had added juice that we just didn't have. I was not surprised to see the goal so early, and then I remember thinking in my head, take as long as you want to clean those teddy bears off. Let this game reset. Because at the end of the day, and it actually came to fruition, right? Where I said, let the team settle in and let them get their legs and let them play, and they'll find a way to claw back into it. And sure enough, great goaltending by Zarenko to keep the game within striking distance. And really, that's really all you need. I mean, it's a bad habit to get into if you're constantly having to claw your way late in the third period. But as long as this team is in striking distance, 2 goals in a minute against Hershey, 3 goals in the third period against the Penguins. You had late goals in Charlotte. So keep this team within striking distance and their offense will find a way. And that was kind of the theme of these first 3 games, I think, at least the first 2. But I think to come away with a point in Pittsburgh, you kind of stole that 1 point. And granted, it's a divisional game, so the 2 points by Pittsburgh separates some distance between them and Springfield. But really, if I think Springfield just has to have a mindset of, we need as many points as we can get. And we haven't necessarily had the W's so far on the road here, but 2 out of 6 points, I think it puts a little bit more pressure on these last 2 games, knowing how close they were to getting really 3 wins, really. Mm-hmm. All 3 of these games were winnable games. It's like what we said in the 2 games in Hershey. They were winnable games. And what is winnable in November and December very easily can just flat out be wins come April when you really need them to be, right? So they're in winnable games. They're learning how to maneuver through these high pressure end of game situations. And, it's not all bad, folks. It's not all bad.
No, that's that, and we talked a little bit of that with Ryan. Like, I don't feel like this team lost 3 in a row. Like, I don't feel like, I mean, they have, but like, I just don't get the vibes that this is a team spiraling. Like, this is a team that's not playing their best. This is definitely a team that, as Ryan said, has this home comfort. I mean, again, I love my job. I love being the PA announcer. I can't tell you how pumped I have to have 2 straight Friday nights and Saturday nights free. Like, it's just like, oh my God, like I get to be home with my family. Like, amazing.
Sure.
So, I think that this is going to be new. And again, usually, right, you're on a bus to Rochester, you're on a bus to Pennsylvania, you're on a bus to here, there, and in other words, they're flying all over the place. That's the one thing I wanted to ask Ryan was like, last week I was like, well, there's an airport in Belleville. I wonder if they're flying Charlotte to Belleville. Now he's in Toronto. I wanted to be like, what are you doing? The heck are you doing in Toronto? Did you guys take a wrong turn? Like, what happened there? But there's going to be a lot of growing pains, and it hurts that they are as banged up as they are at the forward position, that they're playing defenseman at forward. But, to be out, Dean and Laffey and McEachern and Robertson, and I'm sure I'm missing one.
Taryn Pfizer.
Pfizer, right? Like,
yep.
And yet you're still in
Nikita.
these games on the road. Nikki, right? You're still in these games on the road against really good teams. So imagine if you were fully healthy, right? And then I guess that's kind of what you're talking about come April. Like, if this team's healthy and ready to go, now we know how to handle a road trip like that. You get in a playoff series against Charlotte and you're flying, and you're a game, 2 games on the road, you got to fly out to, then you come home for game 3, then you go, whatever the format is, right? Like, let's get used to that now, so that we're ready come springtime, and I think that this is going to be a big opportunity for them. And again, they're going into some buzzsaws here. I mean, Laval's a good team. Belleville hangs around. Like, they don't back down either. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think how many times do we talk about it in Springfield? We're pumped that the teddy bear toss goal comes 2 minutes into the game or less. And Rutger McGorty, who is another guy who I'm surprised is just not in Pittsburgh yet. Emil Bemstrom just was a terror, so I'm impressed that the result came out the way that it did. I thought that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the top line for the next 2 games, but McGing, Luff, Pekka, McGing, Luff, Harrington. You're getting contributions from the Silver Guy, Dvorsky, Koskamaki. Then it was Koskamaki from Luff. Like, now we're really starting to see these top 2 lines carry. And the irony of it is, I thought that in Charlotte, it was the bottom 9 that were really the main contributors, which is good. But
I thought those the bottom 2 lines, I thought in Charlotte played phenomenal. And, you might not be Callan and Laffey had a lot of, they got their points in Charlotte, but I think beyond that, you look at their hustle. And I think there was one point, and look, it's all blurring kind of together for me here.
It does.
But I feel like it was game 2, Wednesday night's game, where the last 2 periods, I actually thought Springfield, granted, they kind of lost 2 sequences, and it was unfortunate that both of those sequences led to goals, but they kind of controlled the game against Charlotte those last 2 periods. And there was one point where it was Bitten, it was Callan, it was Laffey, maybe it was the Tuesday game because Newkirk was in there, right? They were dominating play and cycling the puck. And granted, it didn't create the magical, boom, boom, touch pass, pucks on a string kind of goal. But at the same time, these were your 4th liners where the talent level, the athleticism isn't the same as your top 6 kind of guys. But just their ability to control the puck and their relentlessness, charging after the puck in the corner, finishing the pucks, it really lifts the team. And so again, I don't like to go back and think about last year, but last year the team would lose 3 in a row, and what are we going to talk about?
Go again.
Here we go. Okay. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. It was a tough podcast to get through.
A lot of Dan Tkachuk talk back then.
Yeah, I don't feel that way. And again, you look at the sort of the spring in some of these guys' steps, and just a different feel. And so I don't feel any less confident about this team. I'm still confident. If we look back and we say every team has their ups and their downs, their winning streaks, their losing streaks, and we look back and we're like, man, they were on this 5-game road trip in the middle of December. They lost their first 3, still came away with points. This is a losing streak against good quality teams that is getting them ready for later in the season. Hey, like it's all gravy. It's all good there,
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And I think that this will help them kind of turn around a little bit. And Matt and I, we do a lot of texting back and forth during the games. Although I do have to apologize, Matt, because I'm like a late guy. Like, I don't tune in to watch football, a 1:00 game till like 2:15, so I can fast forward the commercials. 7:00's my kid's bedtime, so I don't even start the hockey game till 7:45ish. So Matt's like, "Are you watching the game?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm 45 minutes behind you."
Well, and that's it. I told you I won't ruin. I'm gonna try really hard. I don't want to ruin anything, so I can't text you like, "Oh my gosh, you see that?"
Right. The discussions would be so much better if we were on the same time frame. So that's on me. But I think I don't even remember where I was going with that. But there was a lot of things over the course of that game that, for instance, I think that one of the ways to beat Charlotte is physicality. And because I don't think they're a physical team, and I think that they're prone to doing dumb stuff and taking bad penalties. And we saw a little bit of that with Ben Steves, who ended up actually scoring a goal in the game. Remember, he scored the goal and then he like tried to fight somebody after he scored. It's like, dude,
yes.
You're 5'9". Like, what are you doing right now? Those are the kind of things where I think that this team can really sort of line up with any type of team and play that style. And that's why I think the bottom two lines really thrived against a team like Charlotte, because they bring something that Charlotte can't match, which is the physicality, as Ryan talked about, the board work, getting into the corners, knocking guys around, winning one-on-one puck battles in the corners. Like, that's what the third and fourth line can do. And I don't think Charlotte has the size, the grit and balls, which is, I'm going to start making t-shirts, grit and balls.
There you go. Yeah.
That is something that I just don't think a team like Charlotte can do. And so it was nice to kind of see that adjustment sort of as they went. I had a couple of notes that, again, I kind of scribbled down while I was watching. Last 2 minutes of the second period, and if you don't remember any of this, Matt, that's totally fine. But the last 2 minutes of the second period of the first game in Charlotte, there was a long shift from Dylan Peterson. Offensive zone, defensive zone, and he could have bagged out and gone to the bench. He didn't. He stayed on the ice. Loof got the puck. It was one of those ones where Loof carries across the blue line. He goes behind the back of the goal, comes back out the other side, and Peterson is the one at the top, sort of covering for him. And over the course of that same sequence, at one point, Schooneman's in front of the net screen, the goalie. Loof has the puck in the corner, and there's two forwards at the top playing defense. And is that a recipe to success? No. But what I got from that is that it was a sign of chemistry. And we've talked about this chemistry. You're a forward. That's your defenseman. You better go cover for him. That's, in the second game, the Thunderbirds lost an offensive drone faceoff, which again, Ryan just crushed on the broadcast. There was like 2 seconds left in the Charlotte penalty, and he said, well, Thunderbirds have to win this faceoff, but they also have to be aware that the guy's going to come out of the box. And of course, they lose the faceoff. What's the first thing Dalibor Dvorsky does? Hightail it out of the zone to go make sure that guy doesn't get the puck.
Yes.
I saw moments during these, especially the two in Charlotte, where this team seemed just so in sync of what everybody else on the ice was doing. I didn't get any of that last season. I didn't get a lot of it at the beginning of the season, but I think this is the thing that we've been talking about is the most important for the young guys, the foreign guys, the veterans coming down, all of it. It seems like they're finally turning a corner in terms of being in sync. And again, tribute to them, but the coaching staff as well.
Yeah. Well said. This week, these past three games, I've really kind of been paying attention to Dvorsky's sort of, again, I don't know if I'm the right person to be judging this, his hockey IQ. Obviously, it's much more than mine. But when you're watching things, you could always, you hindsight, and you can, reflect on things almost in real time. He's such a smart hockey player. And to that point, I was going to bring that up, actually. You just see him, on the draw, he was lined up on the power play on the blue line, and he did. He just turned around and got back, and then that was really not a threat at all. That player coming out of the penalty box there, but his IQ, offensively, defensively, he's such a smart hockey player, and I think there's still some physical things that need to come along for him to be ready for the NHL grind. But his smarts are there. He's a very smart hockey player.
And fun to watch. And I think he plays his game. I think he's trying to play a little more physical, which I appreciate. But if it's not there, it's not there, dude. You don't have to be Milan Lucic. Go out there and play to your strengths, and I think that that's going to bode really well for him at the NHL level. The only other note I wrote down from that was that there was a sequence in overtime, and again, the Thunderbirds got outshot 4-0 in overtime in Game 1 against Charlotte, where Colton Ellis was just absolutely outstanding, and I think losing that game in the shootout as we did, I thought, man, I feel bad for Colton Ellis, like, because he just was nails in that overtime.
One thing, and to comment that, I mean, completely agree with what you're saying. I was surprised we didn't see Dvorsky as one of those top 3 in the penalty shot, in the shootout. I was surprised.
Pekka, Luff, and Kaskamaki,
and then
right?
Kaskamaki, yeah. And kind of surprised. I don't know.
I bet he was number 4.
Probably. But hey, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it is what it is. So they do get a point out of that one with the shootout loss. Ryan called it something nicer than I call it. I call it the pity point, but they got the pity point in the shootout loss against Charlotte, and then back at it the next night. And I think at one point the Thunderbirds were down 1-0 in the first period. They were being outshot 7-0, and then they come back and it's 1-1 after the first period, and they're only outshot 15-12. They're only -3 in the shot category, and I thought, like, wow, like, all right, we got a ball game again, and I think this is a hockey thing more than other sports. I don't think this happens in football. Definitely doesn't happen in baseball. Maybe a little bit in basketball, but it's amazing how a team can come out and, as we say, they look flat, or the other way, they're just absolutely flying, a million miles an hour, and then you have intermission, and then they come out for the second, and you have a totally different team.
Right.
And I think there was a lot of that this weekend where, I mean, they outshot Charlotte 11-2. They outshot them, 16-5. They outshot Charlotte 16-5 in the second and third period of that second game.
Yeah.
Like, and that's from a team that you guys know I complain about all the time, that doesn't shoot nearly enough for me. I mean, to go from being down 1-0, outshot 7-0 to the way that game finished, and I don't mean finished as in the way it ended, but to that point, like, wow, I just love the sport. Like, that doesn't happen in every sort of level of competition.
Yeah. No, well said. And it's interesting. Like I said, I really felt like the Springfield Thunderbirds, again, dominate is the wrong word to use because they gave up 2 goals and ended up losing, but controlled those last 2 periods of Game 2 there. And I think to me, it stung. Game 2 stung a little bit more than a shootout loss or an overtime loss, points aside, because you felt like they kind of outplayed Charlotte there. And I know that's a tough penalty for Schoenemann to take there. The 4 minutes makes it even tougher. Clearly it was the right call. If it drew blood, the stick hit him. I couldn't tell in real time, and even on the replay, it looked like it was a grazing blow. But when there's blood and a stick, it went up high, it's a 4 minute. But
real quick, I say this tongue in cheek. I'm convinced that dude pulled like an 80s wrestling and like had a razor blade in his glove. I was like, because even on the replay, it looked like he hit him in the shield. And even when he flies his head back, he's holding the shield. I'm like, who holds the shield? You hold your own face. You don't hold these. I hold the shield. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Then it's 4 minutes, and I'm like, oh, all right. Well, he must.
It's tough. But look, even still, and we touched upon this earlier, like, you had the breakaways there. In my opinion, that was it's not fair. And this is in all sports, right? You can't pick out one play and say this is why we lost. There's a multitude of things that happen throughout the games. But I mean, Springfield, with a 3-1 lead, with a 3-2 lead, tied 3-3, had odd man rushes, and they just couldn't get it past Drieger. And that was the outcome of the game, not a penalty, not the power play. If you put some of those pucks in, and then that's just how the puck bounces sometimes too. I mean, Hunter Skinner had a chance. The puck kind of bounced and rolled over a stick. It is what it is. And
the irony is, I thought that Zarenko played a much better game. He faced 20 shots, 4 of them went in, and you're like, man, his goals against average is going to be ruined. But I thought that at least two of the Springfield goals, I was like, man, Drieger should have had that.
Yeah.
I mean, and former Thunderbird, so we've seen a lot of this guy. I'm like, man, he should be making that save. I thought that the goals Z gave up were a lot harder to defend than the ones Drieger gave up.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the recipe to beat a Charlotte team is to stay out of the box. I mean,
Yes.
if you can't put them on the power play, and that was a kind of a gripe I had in game 2. The game started in the first period, and I'm like, oh, granted, it didn't bite him in the butt, but you can't be giving this team power play after power play after power play. You just can't. You can't. And that's another thing too. As the season goes on, and or you get into playoff hockey, it is much more 5-on-5, and right now 5-on-5 is where the Thunderbirds want to be. I don't even think they want to be on a power play, because it's probably, I would imagine as a fan, it's more frustrating to see them try to set up a power play. Just forget it. Go to 5-on-5 and
decline the penalty. Just decline
it. I think you've said that before.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So I could only imagine a player on the ice. You've got to be like, come on, let's. Why isn't this working? We have one more skater on the ice, but it looks so bad. But
I to that, I will say to Humaging, who I'm sure is not listening, but if you are Humaging, it's coming, dude. It's coming.
Yeah.
I promise. You're gonna get one soon, and then you're gonna get 6 after that. But just keep trying, dude, because I think he's really playing well.
Yes, he is.
He hasn't scored a goal since the Obama administration, it feels like. And it's like, what does this guy got to do to get a goal around here?
It'll come.
And it will. And it will. And to have the team playing this well without a guy like McGing, injuries, and then a guy like McGing unable to put the puck in the back of the net at the moment, says a lot about them. But he's close. He's close.
Yes.
Matt, I want to ask you about Matt Kessel. This is a guy that we thought last year just had a really unfortunate year, and it wasn't just unlucky bounces like on a nightly basis.
Yep.
I thought that he looked really mature and seasoned, and I don't know. I thought it looked good. What did you think?
I thought it looked great. And as always, the concern with a guy coming down after basically you're the start of your NHL career, and you're thinking this is it, and then you come down, is the attitude. I think we've talked about this before. He just was an unlucky guy, it seemed, early on in his T-Bird career. And was it pressure? Was it too much on him? Was it, putting him in spots, not allowing him to succeed? And then he kind of he overcame that last year. He played well in St. Louis. I think now, as that role shifts, he's also coming to a team that is very giving up a lot of shots, but I don't think it's necessarily poor defensive play. I think it's a defensive system that is allowing all these shots. So he's coming to a team that already has a strong defensive unit. So he's not being sent down to be the savior. He doesn't have to rescue anybody. He can just play hockey. And I think
it's not foreign to him.
Right. And that's kind of what allowed him to do well in the NHL. I think I don't have to save anybody. I can just play hockey. I don't have to overplay the puck. I don't have to overthink anything. I can just react to what I'm seeing and what I feel like is the right thing to do. That's what got him into the NHL and allowed him to stay there. Now he's here, and I think he seemed to play that way in Charlotte. I thought he played well. He got a goal. And he looked good. He did look good. Interesting. Tucker is the one to get the call up. When I saw that PO trade, I thought it was to get Kessel right back up there, but maybe let's give Tucker, who's had a great start to this season, let's get him a few games in St. Louis, and then it might just be him and Kessel kind of alternating back and forth.
Well, I believe, and again, this is where we get so confused and convoluted. He's already cleared waivers, right? Because he got sent down.
I actually think because of his contract structure, how I understood it is he almost didn't need to clear waivers. He was eligible to be sent down because he's still on that initial 2-way contract. Like, he hasn't been extended in a one-way deal. So he doesn't have to clear the waivers.
Well, I mean, I think waivers, whatever that is a big reason why this is all happening. We talk about unfortunate for Matt Kessel. It's unfortunate that he was the odd man out in St. Louis, because guess what, kid? You don't have to clear waivers, so
Yeah.
we're sending you down. Whereas maybe he wasn't the best candidate for that. That's just how it shaked out.
Yeah.
And even with Tucker, it almost seems like the same kind of thing where they can say, well, we need another body that doesn't need to necessarily play, but we also want to have the option.
Yeah.
So let's just get Tucker, and we're going to, I hate to say it, he's going to be buried. He's going to be the 7th guy out. He's not going to address. He's going to be up on the 9th floor till somebody gets hurt.
Well, can you think about it too? Oh, sorry, but this was the thought that just popped into my head. P.O. Joseph gets traded away for future considerations, your favorite thing.
Oh, so, like, I love him. Great player.
To that point.
Future considerations, man. Always brings it every night.
He's good. I'm waiting to get his signature.
110% effort.
Yeah. But like, why not send him down? Because he would have to clear waivers.
Right.
And if he goes to clear waivers, now you're going to lose him to somebody else. So that's why Kessel is the one sent down. Clearly, in St. Louis's mind, P.O. Joseph was expendable. You gave him away for nothing right now. You have nothing in the bank. Send him down to us. Well, no, but then he gets claimed by another team, and then nobody gets him. So send Kessel down, and that's how the NHL works.
Yeah. Future considerations, having a great season for the Kalamazoo Wings in junior hockey. He's playing well.
There's gotta be hockey is unique in that, like, lower leg injury. Okay, what does that mean? Someone knows what that means, but it's just what they can report.
Yeah.
There has to be. I was thinking of this because P.O. Joseph is a good player. There has to be somewhere it's written down, stipulated. It's probably just very convoluted. So future considerations is an easier thing to report, but it's got to be like, if he plays X amount of games for this team with this amount of points, this amount of minutes, this plus minus, this is what we get. Whereas if he's your 7th defenseman, if he's on the 9th floor, this is the play. Like, there's got to be something like that. Yeah. But it's just easier, and this is how hockey does it. Lower leg injury. Somewhere someone knows what's broken or ripped or torn.
Yeah.
Somewhere somebody does. Somewhere somebody knows what future consideration actually is, but we just say, but how does that help the market? Like, how does a player judge their market value if it's future considerations? I don't know.
I don't think it does. I mean, have we gotten any future considerations from Malcolm Subban? Like, what happened there? Like, I don't
know, still in the future.
We were It's true though. Like, and the NFL will do this. Like, they'll make a trade, and it'll be like, it's a 5th round pick, but if this player plays in 8 games and throws for 600 yards, then over the course of the last 2 games, whatever it is, then now it's a 4th round pick. Or if he is in the roster and they get to the 2nd round of the playoffs, then the 4th turns into a 3rd or whatever it is. I bet there's sort of something along those lines. But yeah, as a fan, wouldn't you? I don't care how convoluted it is. Just let me know.
Just tell me. Exactly.
Tell me what it is. So
that's my fan rant.
Interesting.
That bugs me.
That's good stuff. Do we have time for fan rants? I mean, I hate to.
I just, you know what? We touched upon some of them with Ryan. I just wanted to bring up, and they're interesting. I want to comment on some of the no calls or the disallowed goals that it feels like have hit us hard over the last few games. And there was a goal. I think it was the Pittsburgh game, or maybe it was I'm sorry, folks, they're all blending together, but there was a goal where I think it was the Colin Ellis game. So it was game 1 in Charlotte, where it looked like it could have been goaltender interference. And, the player was kind of in the crease and kind of got him a little bit. This is all I'll say on some of these calls. I do believe, and especially in hockey, what comes around goes around. And at the end of the season, it's kind of all a wash. If it truly wasn't, I do believe the league would look into this, because it's a product on the ice, right? Like, if their product is continuously getting it wrong, they're going to fix it. So, and I do believe what comes around goes around here. So it does feel like we are on the short end of the stick, no pun intended there, with some of these calls. You know what? If they're happening again in December, I'm glad they're working against us in December. We will get some that work in our favor, and maybe they'll be coming in March and April when things are a little bit more, on the line, and every little point, every little inch really does matter. So,
well, and real quick, don't think you don't get those, because we
yeah,
do.
well, and that's what I mean.
We've gotten a couple of those already, and we don't remember them because we're like, yeah, we stole that one, and then we go on with our life. The ones that keep us up at night are the ones that get taken off the board. So we've already had a couple as well that have gone in our favor that were questionable. But even Ryan said on the broadcast on that one, I remember he was like, boy, in the NHL, that's a challengeable goal, and you can challenge it, and you can't do that in the AHL. And
Yeah.
if it was the NHL, that would have been challenged. So I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yeah. The other one I just wanted to bring up, and we can do this quick because we are running on time, but Daniel Flynn, great questions, by the way, Daniel. Like, I love
Always.
his little fan rants questions because they're just fun and engaging. And so he wanted to know, which upcoming road game would we like to attend if we had a choice based on competition, arena, or event location? And obviously Bojangles Arena, Place Bell up in Laval, and then the CAA Arena in Belleville. For me, and again, thanks for the question. Great insight. And I love these fun little thought experiment type questions. Laval, just because it seems like the Thunderbirds and Laval, no matter when they play, there's just a little bit more rivalry, and they don't play enough for it to actually be a rivalry. But I just think that would be a fun arena to go to. That would be a fun game to watch. I'm looking forward to that this weekend a lot, actually. I'm hoping that I can just sit down, throw a blanket on, and kind of watch that game this weekend. But so mine would be Place Bell in Laval, just because I think the intensity, Thunderbirds versus Laval, is up there.
Yeah, I think so. I can't. I'm just so bad at answering these because I agree with you, and I think that's kind of an old barn, and it's a smaller market, and us old barn, small market. Like I feel like you get that vibe. I've never been to Quebec. Montreal is a real good time, but I think I would go with Charlotte just because, believe it or not, the guy who works in hockey rinks hates the cold. So when Ryan, when I'm sitting there on the couch freezing watching the Charlotte game, and Ryan's like, "Well, it was 70 degrees here today," and I'm like, "Oh, I just want 70 degrees." To be able to go to Charlotte, walk around, enjoy yourself, have some drinks, and then go to the game in shorts.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my choice, but strictly weather based. Otherwise, send me to. If you want to send me to Canada in April, I'm down. But Canada in December.
All right, so there we go with the fan rants. I apologize, we can't get to all of them today,
guys. We're tired. We love y'all, but we're just.
And I want to quickly, just real quick, 2 upcoming games coming up: Belleville, Laval, Belleville, old friends, Keenawashkarak, and Malcolm
nice.
Subban.
Nice.
So just looking that up. So how these last 3 games ended, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of fisticuffs being thrown here. Washi, we know Washi can scrap. He's I'm not claiming him. He's not a dirty player. He's not a goon or anything like that. But he's not going to back down, and I'm sure he's got a little bit of extra juice to give it to his old teammates. I don't know if Subban will be in goal. I have no idea if it'll be him or Sogard. But I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some old faces there in Belleville.
I was going to say real quick, from looking at the roster, it says that both Jamison Reese, Matthew Highmore, also both on that roster.
Did I miss them? Because I was just looking at their roster. Did I miss them?
Yeah, I don't know. I just pulled up on the AHL.com, and yeah, so.
There you go. Yeah.
I hope we play Subban. I love the guy, but that 6'7" Max Mads Sugard, man, he just kills us. I don't want to face that guy at all. But anyway, yeah. So there's a couple more.
Yeah. Yep. Jamison Reese.
And the best AHL name I think ever, which is Angus Crookshank.
Angus Crookshanks. He always kills us, though. I don't.
He does.
He always kills us. So look, and as far as standing goes, Belleville, very similar kind of record to us. They're sitting in 6th place right now in the North, at 12-6, 0-4, 28 points. And then Laval up top, that game 1 of the season. So we had a lot of juice. We were able to pull that one off 3-1. So I'm expecting physical play up north here in Canada. Wouldn't be surprised to see the gloves drop a few times. to be honest with you, over these next 2 games. You're ending a road trip. You're tired. You're cranky. You're just going to want to get home. You're going to play hard hockey. You just want to get home, though, and with a hard-fought win, hopefully.
Yeah, and they are. They're fighting for points too, big time. But you, as you mentioned, 4 losses in the shootout. Drag this team with you. I think I said it.
Yeah.
I said we were talking about, Matt and I were texting back and forth about wins and how you want this to shake out. And I said, I'm not really caring about wins. I'm caring about points. Like drag Laval to overtime, drag Belleville to overtime. They're not in your division. Just if it's one of those nights where you're off and you're down and you're scratching and clawing, drag them to overtime if you have to and get that point. That point is so huge, the pity point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's incredible to look at the standings here in the Atlantic Division, and you've got teams basically, I mean, everybody, even except for the Bears, but you're all 27 points, and we're sitting in 5th, but you got the Wolfpack and the Phantoms with 27 points as well. The Penguins have 29, the Bruins at 31, and the Checkers at 33. So you're looking at, a few game winning streak here or there but it's massive swings, huge swings in the course of one weekend across this division. So let's not overreact. Let's just look for the product on the ice. Are we still seeing good, smart hockey being played? And at the end of the day, the results will be what they are,
Yeah. I mean, I said last week, I thought Charlotte was broken. Well, Steve, they're 8-2 in their last 10. Providence is 6-0-1 in their last 7. So it's a streaky league. It's a streaky division. And you got to just kind of keep up. The Thunderbirds now are 6-2-1-1 in their last 10, but they're 0-1-1-1, as we know, in their last 3. So, it'll be interesting to see. This is what makes this podcast so fun, because it's not the same thing with this team. It's not the same thing every week. Every week it's something new, something emotional, something interesting, something fascinating we can talk about. And it's going to be a fascinating couple days.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So outside of the 2-game roadie, Belleville, Laval, holidays ring in, 5 days off. Nice to know that Ryan will, I don't think we recorded the interview and then we chatted a little bit. Matt, and Ryan did. The team will actually be back for Christmas, which is nice. Ryan's going to fly out to his in-laws for Christmas in a different time zone, get this dude off planes, for crying out loud. But it is nice to know that most of the players will be comfortably either here in Springfield or in the general area. I'm sure Dylan Peterson will be out in Boston, that kind of thing. But they will have that time to be with family, which is really nice. And then before you know it, Friday, December 27th, back at the Thunderdome against Hartford. It's a Deuces Wild Friday, $2 domestic drafts, hot dogs, sodas, pregame concert series by Access. It is the Trinity Health I-91 rivalry series. Good for both teams to get a sponsor for that. Why not? Make your money where you can. And it's Big Y family night. So if you have a Big Y card, you can get $5 off select tickets with your Big Y card. So if you're looking to go to this game and you want to save a little bit of money, and why not flash that
Use
Big
Y card?
And, get a little bit of something on there. It's all presented by MGM Springfield. And then Saturday, to wrap everything up, just in case things go terribly wrong, it is a cleanup day against the Bridgeport Islanders. It is the Boomer Chimney Ornament giveaway. I'm not really sure what that is. I never put an ornament on my chimney, but I'm happy to have one and see what it looks like. Let's hope you blow doors on that one. And then to close out the year and really the month, Tuesday, New Year's Eve, 3:05. Great idea having a 3:05 game. Everybody's so antsy on New Year's. Let's have a 3:05 hockey game on New Year's Eve. I don't know if you know, but I think our wives are talking with other wives about putting together a very large group to go.
We're trying to get a group together. Yeah, we're trying to get a group to go to that one.
Fun as heck. So we'll talk to Frank down there at the Thunderdome. I hope you guys have fun. I'll be working. But everyone has a sober ride home. But just nice to have that Tuesday, New Year's Day. I'm sure it's tough on the players. They're going to be begging for the new year to come. But Bridgeport and then 2 against Hartford. That'll be fun.
Busy. I don't know. You want to wrap up with the with our sponsors and then
yeah. Yeah, it's just real quick. It's funny. It's December 19th. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 games between now and the end of the year. Like 5 games,
crazy.
and it's a quick turnaround. So
Boom, boom, boom.
yeah, this is fun. We enjoy it. Again, Matt and I, as just brutal as we both feel right now, we are more than happy to sit down and do a show, have some fun, have some laughs.
Always.
And we're so glad that it's brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in downtown Springfield and in Amherst, by our friends at Brewcade in Agawam on Walnut Street, and by Landscaping That Fits, the go-to place to get on a list for the spring for your whatever you need, aeration. You still got fall cleanup, really whatever it is. Contact Rob, tell him that we sent you, and he'll be happy to hear that. And in the meantime, we're just gonna sit in our couches and root for the team. This is new for me. I don't get to do that. I'm so excited.
It's awesome. It's fun. It's fun. Thank you, fans, for listening, commenting on social media.
Thank you,
Ryan Smith, voice of your Springfield Thunderbirds. Thank you for taking time in the hotel room on this busy road trip and taking some time with us to talk with us. And thank you, fans. Thank you, fans. T-Birds, 2 games up in Canada. Let's go, T-Birds, eh?
Happy holidays.